How'd you like to be Comeback Player of the Year? Well, think about it. Got some ambivalence? That Player of the Year thing sounds pretty good, but come back from what? The point is we all go through adversity and we all have to come back. So while you wouldn't necessarily want to be eligible to be Comeback Player of the Year, if you are eligible, win it. That is next on Radically Rational, the podcast. Hello, and thank you for being with us. Welcome to Radically Rational, the podcast. At Radically Rational, we're bringing facts back into fashion, and we're just trying to make simple sanity sexy again, make the world make sense. And if I violate my own principles, I will get busted by an 8-year-old girl.
Can you think for yourself?
I have learned never to argue with her. Okay, there are very few things about which I am certain. In fact, a foolish certainty is irrational, but I am certain of this. Every human being who has ever walked this planet has had a difficult life. Nobody has had an easy life. It is the human condition. And it's how we handle that ultimately is the measure of the type of human being that we are. So anytime I get philosophical, I like to bring in my good friend, and I'm proud to call him my good friend, Anthony Pittman. Just first of all, Pitt, welcome, and thanks for being here. I should let people know that Anthony Pittman is one of the most naturally talented television performers I have ever seen.
The movie Field of Dreams had that classic line in it, and everyone knows it. Build it, and they will come. Well, the voters of Amarillo approved the building of this downtown baseball park known as Hodgetown. It's this location, along with what many consider to be a thirsty base for baseball, that encouraged the San Diego Padres to bring minor league baseball back to the Panhandle. If Lee Baker is staying off the golf course for at least one day to go head-to-head against the other celebs in a fitness competition, you know we've got to be there. And speaking of being there, that's where ABC7's Tatiana Toomer is right now at Bivens Point for a special day. Tatiana, I hope I didn't give away the entire story right there. How are you? The 2018 Center City Electric Light Parade alongside ABC7's Leisha Schmidt. I'm Anthony Pittman. Thank you so much for being here tonight on what I guarantee you will be a great night for the Panhandle. Now, would your wife say if you got on her last nerve, can't you be more like Chris Gaines?
Well, I got to tell you, if you ask her what her favorite Garth Brooks album is, you'll be surprised what the answer is.
That Anthony Pittman is one of the most naturally talented television performers I have ever seen.
Wow.
Along with maybe Michelle Beadle, who used to work for NBC and ESPN and is now back with the San Antonio Spurs. Dude, you're that good. You're such a natural communicator.
Well, thanks, Paul.
Just a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. I guess I should leave now because that's the lift me up I could use, and I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on the show. My wife and I listen, so this is good to be here sitting with you and having hopefully a great conversation. But thank you. Those are some extremely kind words. You don't have to say that, man.
I have never seen you in an uncomfortable environment. I have never seen you in an environment that you didn't appear to be completely natural and completely comfortable with. You are an uncommonly versatile communicator.
Well, thank you. You and I make a lot of the sports comparisons, analogies.
Yeah.
And, if I could say I was or have been in a career a pretty good versatility player, could play third, short, second, first, wherever it might take. And that's kind of like I look at my career as just somebody who could be flexible and hopefully good at what he does.
But don't be that self-deprecating because you're not a utility player. You're a quality player who can play a number of different positions, and it's really impressive to watch.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say other than that's awesome for you to say. It makes me feel good.
You should know that you're very, very good at what you do.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we do frequently on Radically Rational is we want to talk about the human condition. We want to talk about the things that make us human. And Pitt, I've only had one epiphany in my whole life, and I was so stupid that I had to be led into that one. But I finally figured out after it was beaten into my head that with respect to our interpersonal relationships with every human being we encounter, you really have to take into account that every single human being is dealing with something monstrous.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that. And the day that you do, your relationship with the world, your relationship with other people, your relationship with yourself changes. And I said it had to be beaten into me. Just about everything I've ever learned has been from a football coach because I'm pretty simple. But when I was in high school, there was an assistant coach, Pitt, that even by the standards of early 70s Texas high school football coaches, this was a tough guy. This was a demanding guy.
Hand on the face mask, shake your face, get back in the game kind of guy.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, that was nothing. Yeah.
That was nothing. And I will tell you this, and I'm saying it lovingly, we were all afraid of him.
Yeah.
Because we had every reason to be afraid of him. Well, as it turns out, after he got out of coaching, he became a Methodist minister. You know, and you first think, well, that's a non sequitur. How you can go from football coach to Methodist? It's the same job.
Yeah.
It's the same job. So after I was an adult, we had like a 20-year team reunion, and I'm talking with this coach. And, you know, since I work in journalism, I'm very inquisitive. I'm asking him questions. And I said, Coach, now that you're a preacher, now that you're a minister, what's the one thing you've learned? And he said, what I've learned is that everybody's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, I've really tried to adopt that into my life philosophy. Now, I fail sometime, okay? I violate that principle sometime, but I try to call myself on it. But when you realize that if somebody is being obstinate, if they're being difficult, if they're being a jackass, it's entirely possible the reason for that is because they are in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
Once you realize that, you deal with things differently.
Yeah, well, we all have our crosses to bear, and in that case, and so many cases like that, it's easy to preach that to someone, but personally to live it, maybe not as easy.
It's not easy.
At least that's how I've always felt. I've given all kinds of advice. You know, people have talked to me about anything in life, and I've confidently given my advice, and then walked out of the room and didn't follow my own advice. And let it bother me.
Guilty as charged.
Let it bother me, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pitt, let's talk about your life. Because when we talk about, I'll use this analogy. We talked about this on the opening slate of this show. This term, comeback player of the year. Mm-hmm. You know, you receive that with a certain amount of ambivalence.
Yeah.
Hey, comeback player. What's this comeback stuff?
Yeah, what happened? What went wrong?
Yeah, coming back from what?
Yeah.
I've already told people what a gifted communicator you are. And you have had a wonderful, and continue to enjoy a wonderful career in communications. And like all of us, you were on a pretty good glide path, man. You had that thing going on, and you still do.
Well, thank you.
And then what?
Wow. And then what? It's a big question. And it's my testimony, it would have to be. There are points on that so-called glide where I stopped gliding. I just messed up, made personal mistakes. And just to come straight out and be honest and open, 2003, working here in San Antonio, my hometown, 2003, enjoying life, covering the Spurs, Cowboys, whatever it might be, DUI. Okay? Mm-hmm. Came back from that because it was the first mess up. 7 years later, DUI number 2. The company no longer has faith in me. They've got to let me go. And I understood it because I was now a liability. So a couple of years away from television, during a time I was reaching out to you. Right. Hey, Paul, you got anything? And I loved your honesty then. It's too soon. It's too soon. I can help you. We can look for some other locations.
Everything you're saying is the truth, but let me add this. Would have hired you on the spot if I could have pushed that through the process at that point. And on the spot.
I definitely understand that. And it was a bad time. I had to get my life together. So after 3 years away from television, I got a call from a station in Amarillo, Texas, and talking about comeback player of the year. I had already told myself mentally then that if I end up, after working in West Palm Beach, Florida, San Antonio, Texas, if I end up in a town like Amarillo, a Beaumont, a smaller town, something went wrong. I would joke with that. I would never go back to a smaller market. And if I did, something went wrong. Well, something went wrong. And I had to start all over again. And after 7 years in Amarillo, hate to say it, in early 2020, I got I made a horribly poor decision and got caught up in a prostitution sting. Tried to walk away from it, but it was too late. Got arrested. And as we, right to this day, work that out in the court systems, because the case hasn't even been heard, because of COVID. As we try to work that out, I've been trying to get back on my feet. And a big part of getting back on my feet is mentally getting back on my feet. Because what I did, I admit, I know it was a poor choice. But I was fired because of the arrest. No conviction, but because of the arrest. And so be it. I understand the way those things go. But, I'm at a time now in my life where it's a lot of reflection and a lot of trying to get back on my feet, trying to be that comeback player of the year, but mentally. So I can go on about my life and do things that I know could be good for me and good for others.
What do you want to do?
I like to communicate. So I love long form interviews. It'd be great to get paid to do interviews. It'd be great to talk to interesting people. But it's really interesting during this time trying to realize what you want to, or what I want to, what I can still do. So it's a journey right now. And the biggest part of it, like I said, it's a mental journey. Because I'm going to be honest about this. With 2 DUIs and then a solicitation charge, in my case, and I assume this is the case for others too that have been in these kind of positions, there's so much guilt and shame you deal with, and it's hard to look at people that you've known for years and years and years. You wonder what your friends think. Whenever they see you, is that all they think about? There's Anthony, no longer Anthony, good friend, Anthony, good broadcast journalist, but Anthony who got in trouble with the law again. And I see myself as a good person, but good people make, at times, bad choices, poor choices.
Everybody does. So
Yes.
Where are you in the self-forgiveness process? Because I'm not real good at that. There are things I should beat myself up about, and I continue to. And I know that's not necessarily a healthy thing, but my feeling would be self-forgiveness is absolutely necessary. It's required, but it only means anything if you take ownership of it.
I know. And that's the toughest part, Paul, is I can take ownership of my mistakes. I don't walk away from them. No doubt. I admit when I've done wrong. But when there's guilt and shame involved, for me, and maybe for others, it's hard to sweep it away. I don't know. And then if it's something someone considers moral, it's even tougher to sweep away. And I know Christ died on that cross in Calvary's Hill to forgive us of our sins from east to west. And I know that. And I believe that. But to get this to believe it has been tough.
What would you want people to know about you?
That I'm a good person who has made mistakes, but not mistakes that were intended to hurt anyone. They're just mistakes on my part, foolishness.
How has this changed your attitude toward other people who have made mistakes?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. Even going back to my first DUI, and working and doing sports, once a month, a story would come across about someone getting popped, driving and doing something they shouldn't have been. And I never wanted to read that story. I wanted someone else to do the story.
I understand. I do.
I felt like
I understand.
I would hear judgment from a lot of people. How could that person, why doesn't that person get a driver? Why this? Why not this? How do they have so much money? Whatever. But it's about making poor decisions no matter who you are. And I could understand it. And it would hurt. We talked, off camera here about Henry Ruggs of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Of the Raiders.
Yeah. And the poor decision he made recently that involved what appears to be, he'll have his day in court, but what appears to be drinking and driving and going at a high rate of speed, 156 miles an hour?
156, loaded gun in the car.
Yeah.
Initial indication is blood alcohol content twice the legal limit.
Yes. Hits another car, kills the driver, a woman, and her pet.
And her dog.
Her dog. And when I heard that story, I almost cried. And I'm going to try not to cry right now because I was hurting immensely for the girl's family because everything has changed now for life. I was hurting for Henry Rugg's family because that's their little boy. That's mama's little boy, no matter how,
no doubt,
no matter what kind of star he is, how old he gets, that's mama's little boy. And I was hurting for her and that family and hurting for Henry.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And you got to be a little careful sometimes because it sounds like, that you're expressing sympathy for somebody who made a series of horrendous decisions that resulted in the death of a human being. Mm-hmm. But I'm not ashamed to say it. Yeah, I'm hurting for Henry too. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I know that feeling. I know that feeling of the lights going off and getting pulled over and knowing, oh my goodness, what have I done? But I didn't take a life. And, unfortunately, a life is lost in this case. And I can only imagine what's going through his head. And yeah, I get it. The people who might say, I don't care what he's thinking. Right. He took a life. I understand that. And it's hard to reconcile that. It's hard to fathom that moment and what he went through then and what he's going to go through now. But, it's it's the cross he has to bear now because he's the one who lived. I had a good friend who told me, and I live by this, after my second DUI, said, hey, Pitt, I'm glad the cops got you. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I'm glad the cops got you and not a family of 5 in a Buick.
What a sentence. What a phrase.
Yeah.
That has impact.
Yeah. And I wish in this case a cop had got to Henry before Henry got to a car and there's a life loss.
How much of this collective failure to empathize, how much do you think that's driving our communications problems in the United States right now, particularly our political communications problems, because we are talking past each other and it is tribal and it is us versus them, even when that doesn't make any sense. So in my mind, part of being moral is being rational. Okay, morality in my mind is not just moral, it's being rational. And what we're doing right now, I think in terms of the way we treat each other, it's not only immoral, it's irrational because it prohibits us from making any progress and being the people and the nation that we can be.
It takes away the ability to hear each other no matter the differences that we have. Because, I want to say it wasn't always like this. And I don't want to be the old man who's like, back in my day, but I felt like it wasn't always like this.
I don't think it was. And like you said, I think it's human nature that we evaluate things and times in terms of our experience and our time on this earth, et cetera. And we think that anything we're going through is totally unprecedented. I know that's not the case, but I will say this. It's way worse now and way more exacerbated now and way nastier now than it's been in any time in my lifetime, and I'm 67.
And the crazy thing about this, and really interesting part is, we still, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, we still have more in common than we don't. A state representative, when I was living in Amarillo, his name's For Price. He's on the opposite end of the political spectrum that I am, but he's a nice guy. We can have conversations. And he told me, gosh, Anthony, I just wish my side of the aisle and the other side of the aisle and in the middle would realize that we have so much in common. We could get some things done. And I believe him. I definitely believe him. But for some reason, we start wearing the labels of, left and right or center, and we just don't want to hear each other anymore. Unfortunately, we just want to fight.
And I would say it's because we have chosen to limit ourselves to 2 and only 2 options. You're either this or you're that, and there is nothing else, and you can be nothing else. So everything fits neatly into one of 2 and only 2 shoeboxes. I'll go back to this. That's not rational.
No, it's not. And if we all think about growing up when we had, we had our buddies, we had our friends we were running around with. And as we got older, maybe we start peeling apart separately into different directions, especially politically, religiously, whatever it might be. But we know, if you think about it deep down inside, there's a foundation, a friendship before we started going different directions. I'm in college and I have roommates that are on the different ends of the political aisle, but they're still great friends to this day. I don't always agree with them, but we listen to each other. And I wish there was more of that on the local level. I mean, from school board to the White House. I wish we would just listen to each other more and not be so quick to fight each other, because it's so tough. It's so toxic. But, I'm saying things people, they know. I wish I could magic wand it and change it, but so be it.
My guest is my dear friend and one of the best broadcast journalists I've ever known, Anthony Pittman, and I thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. Let me ask you about this concept.
Okay.
This is something else that finally I've learned. There's a difference between courage and bravery and fearlessness. It's not the same thing. And, I see bumper stickers that say no fear. And frankly, Pitt, when I see something like that, what I think is no brain. You just haven't lived long enough. There are things out there you ought to be fearful about. So courage is not the absence of fear. In fact, courage requires the presence of fear, or it's not courage. It's not bravery. Bravery, like the John Wayne type said, is saddling up and doing what you got to do anyway when your knees are knocking. And I do want to share kind of a personal example of this. I've been doing this communications thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was young and stupid and oblivious. And the truth of the matter is, one of the little blessings that I enjoyed early in my career, Pitt, honestly, nothing bothered me. I mean, you could put me in any situation, 54 beats a minute, 110 over 65. Now, was I brave? No. Was I courageous? No. I was oblivious. I was a slug. I wasn't smart enough to be afraid. And let me tell you what happened. And my wife is sitting in this room, and I don't know that I've told her this entire story. I went to bed one night, and this was in the heart of my on-camera television journalism career.
Yeah.
And it was right here in San Antonio. And I went to bed one night completely fearless, and I woke up 8 hours later panophobic, afraid of my own shadow, afraid of everything. Okay, what did I do? I went to sleep. Okay, I was terrified of being on television. I was terrified. And this was at a time when I was doing, 3 lengthy sportscasts a day.
Yeah.
And I would have to have a pep rally with myself. I didn't know what was going on. It completely terrified me. Pitt, it got to this point, I changed my writing style, maybe for the better, but I changed it where the sentences were shorter so that I knew I was not going to asphyxiate.
Yeah, you condensed your writing.
Yeah, because I wanted to get through this. And again, my point is everybody's been through things like this, and it's when you realize that. And it did force me to confront this. And at that point, there was at least a certain amount of courage involved because my knees were not, and I was afraid of this stuff. Whereas before, I had just had this cosmic blessing. Nothing bothered me.
Yeah.
And now all these years later, that monster pretty much has gone into remission, but I get it every now and then.
Do you know why that monster started to rear its ugly head?
I got a half-baked theory on it. I think I started to feel guilty about being so fortunate. A lot of great things that happened to me, and a lot of great things. And it's not to say I didn't work hard for them, but there were a lot of things where I was just incredibly fortunate. And I do think there was this kind of Calvinist guilt about that. And interesting thing. I had a physical therapist tell me one time when I was recovering from an injury, stress doesn't get you where you're strong. Stress gets you where you're weak. So stress, which I think has a personality and a brain of its own, what's the biggest way I can hurt this guy? I can make it hard for him to make a living.
Yeah.
And I think at some level I probably thought I deserved that I had that coming.
In a weird way, you felt you had that coming. I think of two things here. I think his name's Dan Harris of ABC News, had a massive panic attack on air. On a Monday, he felt great. On a Tuesday, he couldn't do his job live on air. And he had to go into some deep psychoanalysis. Wrote a book about it to help others. I also think personally that I may have there's been a lot of talk about mental health recently. And I've seen counselors, I've seen psychiatrists. I'm not ashamed to admit that. To figure out why I would do the things I would do when life was going good. And it's like a sabotage theory. I started thinking, did I try to sabotage? Because I
think there may
felt
be
like
something
maybe
to
I
that.
didn't deserve opportunities I had in my life.
I think that's exactly what I'm saying.
I know when I was in West Palm Beach, life was really good in West Palm Beach. Beautiful city, great job. Grew up loving the Miami Dolphins. I was traveling with the Dolphins. I was doing the Jimmy Johnson show. I was like in heaven when he left the Cowboys and ended up with the Dolphins. Saw Don Shula leave. Had a good relationship with Don Shula. Everything was going good. And I started to sabotage my career by not accepting opportunities for possibly bigger and better, if you know what I mean, bigger markets, whatever. Because suddenly I was believing I wasn't worthy of it. So I was watching people I was working with move on to great things, and I was just kind of hanging around because I thought, well, do I really deserve this? Am I really good enough? And then fast forward to San Antonio, I started abusing alcohol because maybe I felt like I didn't deserve this. Maybe in a weird way, maybe like they say, I want to get caught. And I have to think about those things.
Right.
Because I knew right from wrong, and we all do. But
you do in particular. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Of course you do.
So I understand where that monster suddenly jumped up on you. Because in a different way, I experienced the same.
What are you afraid of these days, and in what areas are you showing real courage?
Where am I afraid? In a weird way, I'm still afraid to see longtime friends that I haven't seen. I had people when I got into the trouble in Amarillo, because it's a moral issue, solicitation charge. It's not like DUI where it's like, oh, he's just sick. He needs to be, you need to just stop drinking. I had people who reached out to me on Facebook, and saying, hey, I understand you're no different than anyone else. You got caught, that kind of stuff. And in a way, I have been afraid to see them. I see my family. I thank God my wife, she still married me. This happened when we were just engaged, and she still married me. But I've been afraid just to get out. I thought by coming here today, I was like, okay, this is a blessing. God put it on Paul's heart, my name, to come in here and we can talk about this and compare it to other things that maybe can help someone. I don't want to use the old cliche if it could help one person, but whatever.
But you live that, and you do feel that way, and you should know this. When we had this conversation, and I asked you if you'd like to be on this program, Pitt, I didn't really have a whole lot of trepidation about this because I know who you are, and I know the message that you want to convey. I wasn't real nervous about that. I felt really good knowing that there were some things that you wanted and needed to express.
Well, I'm glad you did, because when you asked me, I think I followed it up with, so what's the topic going to be?
Comeback Player of the Year.
And then when you said Comeback Player of the Year, I was like, okay, I got it. And I told you, you can ask me anything, because I'm not going to shy away from anything.
No, you haven't.
Not at all. I've tried to shine a light on open my chest up and get some light in there. Because when you do that, you see how unfortunately dark it can be, how much soot there can be that you just need to eliminate, and it just bogs you down, It just jumps on you, and in a different way, it's the monster that jumps on my back that I have to deal with.
Have you found as a result that trivial stuff doesn't bother you as much anymore?
My wife would probably say no, because sometimes I might react and she's like, why did that bother you? And it's still things I'm trying to work out that I don't even know why I would react in a certain way. But as a whole, trivial things don't bug me nearly as much as they used to. My parents and my brothers and sisters would be the first to tell me, like when I didn't even know there was a so-called improvement in myself, that they see it. But maybe I can't see it because, can't see the forest for the trees. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's in an area that, I'd love to just improve in life. I don't want some things to bother me that used to. Even down to politics, because I love my politics. And I just don't want certain things to burn at me like they used to. And it's been better.
What can we do on a micro level, on an interpersonal level, to try to make things better? Because it's really going to have to happen one person at a time. And something that I really try to do, and I fail miserably sometime, and don't think that I'm giving anybody some kind of life advice or directives. But when I see somebody doing a good job, I don't care what the job is. If I see somebody doing a good job, I really try to make a point to go up to that person and say, you're doing a hell of a job, and we all appreciate it. Because on those occasions when somebody said that to me, it's meant everything to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Recently, I was at in a Walmart, and it was a young man. He looked like he was maybe 16, 17, was busting his tail stocking. And he walked by me, and he looked like, I must have looked like I needed help. And he's there to stock, not to help people in the aisles. He asked me if I needed help. I said, yeah, a little this, a little that, something. So he kind of raced me around and helped me out, and then busted tail, and I saw him go back into like the freezer area. I mean, it's like starting loading stuff in the freezers. And on my way out, I was like, I got to find the manager. It's like, the man over there, the young, the guy with the dreads over there, he really helped me when he was super busy doing other things. Like maybe in the past, I'd have just said to him, thank you, I appreciate it, and kept going. But I couldn't leave without wanting the bosses, the managers to know that he was doing a good job, And, he doesn't know I did that, but I hope he gets some accolades for it, So maybe in the past, I would have just said thank you and kept going. But now I just want to be more direct about that. And I think, you said it on maybe on a micro level, on a smaller level, if we just talk more, if you pick up the phone or with a friend, talk to someone, just have more niceties.
You ever think about writing a book?
I started writing one, freestyle, bunch of notepads, and I stopped because I thought, who wants to read this?
I think you'd be surprised.
I stopped 6 months ago.
I think you'd be surprised. The answer is a whole lot of people who would want to read it and need to read it.
And see, that's so hard for me to imagine. My wife said, why did you stop writing? And I was like, it was an emotional moment. It's like, who cares? Like, what makes me any different than anyone else? So I'd like to continue it, and I should, even if it never sells a copy. That's not what it should be about anyway. It's an interesting question you asked me.
I really hope,
because I know we've never talked about writing a book.
No, I really hope that you do that. I think it'd be great for everybody. I think it'd be great for you, but I think it would be great for really anybody who read that material, because once again, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, and we always think that we're the only people who are going through these problems, and I'm the only person who has committed these sins, and I'm just like the worst person ever. And the more you communicate, you realize that everybody is dealing with that. And ultimately, the success of our lives and the success of the impact that we have on other lives is how we deal with that adversity, because you got one or two choices. And again, none of this is prescriptive. We've all got to feel our way through this. But the one thing I've done, and it really took a lot of pressure off me, of all the options available to me at any given point in time in any situation, quitting is not one of them. Okay? I have completely taken quitting off the table. That's not going to happen. Once you do that, you find that your options are more open than you think they are. It's really very liberating. It really is. The one thing I'm not going to do is quit.
No, I'm glad you say that. Because I think a lot of people, they don't have the option to quit. I feel like I don't have the option to quit. Like mentally,
option to quit can be a luxury, right?
It could be.
Sure.
It could be, but I don't have that luxury.
Right.
And I couldn't live with myself if I considered myself a quitter. Something that crossed my mind, I think it might be kind of interesting, is when we talk about that monster, what that monster might be in your life, being in the position that I had been, in such a public job. Like I'm all about black role models. I know Charles Barkley said, I'm nobody's role model, but you are, whether or not you realize it.
But you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you might encourage somebody to do something positive in their life that you have no idea. And years ago, working here in San Antonio, I was at a track meet, and I had a little kid come up to me. And I had done something with Jeannie Jekyll in the newspaper. And it was something really quick. And
I got to tell you this real quick. Somebody asked me this one time.
Okay.
I don't mean to interrupt, but by the way, lovely person.
Yes.
We get along absolutely well. But Jeannie Jekyll for years was the newspaper television critic.
Yes.
Okay. And I was at the business end of several of Jeannie's barbs from time to time in the newspaper. And I used to joke that the 5 most blessed words in the English language were, Jeannie Jekyll is on vacation. Just a joke.
Yeah, because she's a good woman. She's awesome. I love what she did for so many years too here in town, in the newspaper. But she had done a little blurb with me once about just favorite things, like favorite television show.
Love it. Yeah, sure.
So at the time it was like favorite television shows, and I think I had mentioned it was the Bernie Mac show, The Simpsons, and The West Wing. Okay, little blurb in the paper. Some little kid came up to me. I think he was 12, 10, 11, 12 in that area. Little black kid, and he says, I want to be a TV, what do I have to do to be a sportscaster like you? I'm sitting there with my family. And I was like, wow, He says, are your favorite shows still Bernie Mac, The Simpsons, and The West Wing?
It had made such a big impression.
So after we talked a little, he went away. I was with my sister. I have one sister who's really direct, and she poked me. She says, see, that's why you got to live right.
You never know
Yeah.
when you have just said something that's going to alter somebody's life for better or for worse, or where not saying something has altered their life. And I felt this as a student, and then later on, I had the absolute blessing of spending many years as an educator and a coach. And you always have to be aware, anything that comes out of your mouth could really materially impact this person. And I think of a couple of times when I really benefited from it. I was in the 6th grade, and sports was just the whole thing. Okay,
Gotcha.
So I was taking this speech class in the 6th grade. And there was a teacher, and I remember his name, Mr. Dennis Gunderson. And he had served in the Peace Corps, and he was a very cool dude. And one day in class, he said, Alexander, you're going to make a much bigger impact with your brain than you do with your legs. And that had never occurred to me before, okay? And here's the thing. He's the teacher. He's Mr. Gunderson. He knows. Okay, so if that's who he thinks I am, then damn it, that's who I am.
Yeah.
But it impacted me so much. And later on, when I was in high school, we had a brand new assistant coach. People know about him, Bobby Smith.
Oh, yeah.
A longtime coach
Yeah.
here in San Antonio, one of the most wonderful men I've ever met. He was a brand new coach. And it was the day that we were getting our equipment before the season. And he was up in this loft. He's up on top of this ladder, and he's handing down shoes. And he looked down at me and said, I got to get that guy some fast shoes because I've heard about that guy. That guy's fast. Then I could run, but I wasn't that fast. But dang it, dude just told me I'm fast. So you know what? I'm fast.
Oh, yeah.
I'm lightning.
Yes. No, I get it. I get it. I think back to being in elementary school, J.B. Passmore Elementary here in town. And Gene Lively, if you recognize.
Oh, of course I do. Absolutely.
An anchorman from years past.
Yes.
Did a career day, and he came to the school. And I was sitting there, with the whole class, a bunch of classes together, the crisscross applesauce. We're sitting there like that. And I said, I want to do what you're doing, but I want to do it like sports. And I said, I want to do like Howard Cosell. He said, so you want to be a sportscaster? And I was like, yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
He told me, yeah, you can be a sportscaster. Now, at the time, there weren't too many people of my skin tone on TV.
But you were just told this is possible.
Exactly. Go for it. Gene Lively, Caucasian man, told the young black kid, yeah, you can do that. No problem whatsoever. So I pieced this together with the young man who came up to me at the track meet. And because I'm going to go back to the monster thing. Here it is. Gene Lively told me I could be a sportscaster one day. The young kid comes up to me and says, I want to be like you are doing right now.
Yeah.
The back of my mind, I know I've been slipping up. I've been doing things I shouldn't be doing. So I internally start having that power struggle. That this kid, he kind of admires you, and you're out there sinning. So did the monster come because I'm in that eternal battle with kind of a role model to some, but I know some of the truth. I'm like, and I'm not living the life that I should be. I think the monster jumps up. I just kind of all put that together. That that's what I've been trying to work through. Come to the realization that I'm like anyone else. I've sinned. I've done some things I shouldn't have done. But I want to move forward, and I want people to know I'm a good person. But maybe I don't have to prove that to anyone other than myself.
I think it's pretty evident. I do. We've all failed. And here's the human truth. None of us is done failing. Okay, I don't know how to break it to you, folks. We're not through failing. I'm not through failing. Nobody in this room is through failing. Yeah. You're not through failing. So it's inevitable. It's how you deal with it. And yes, you have to forgive yourself, but you have to be worthy of self-forgiveness. And that means that you have to have learned something. But what ought to really buoy all of us is that we all literally are in the same boat. When I issued this invitation, I kind of couched it and framed it in this issue of Comeback Player of the Year. I'd vote for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. I've struggled with would I vote for myself at times. I've struggled with the last time I was here, my wife had joined you.
Absolutely.
And you guys were talking journalism, investigative journalism, and Carrie Clack was in here as well. And Carrie's done so much with the community, the black community, and
humankind.
Humankind.
Carrie's kind of that kind of guy, yeah.
Yes. But you know how, you've been around enough black folks to know that we hold on to people of color who've done some things. Like we like to claim, I don't want to go down the comedy route here, but we like to claim, that person's black, whatever. And when I've slipped up, I was like, oh, God dang, man, I'm just like letting down my own community. I'm letting down my own family.
And frankly, Pitt, while we're all going to have burdens, I don't have to deal with that burden. And I'm aware socially and societally that I don't have to deal with that particular burden. That's not insignificant, man. That's got to really impact your thoughts.
No, it does, because that's the truth. You know, if we just want to be honest, that's the truth. The difference in cultures in this country, that black people, we hate it when someone of color slips up. It's like, I mean, you see comedies about that. You know, see Dave Chappelle doing skits about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're like, oh, come on, you know. And it's an added weight to carry, but it shouldn't be, because, you know, it should be all a human thing and all an American thing. If you do well, you do well. If you don't do so well, then you don't do so well. It shouldn't matter, you know, your skin tone.
I'm hoping we can all spend more time and effort taking weights off each other's shoulders.
Amen.
Instead of adding to each other's burden. Pitt, I'm proud to call you my friend, and I want you to know this. I meant what I said when we opened this podcast. You are one of the most naturally gifted communicators that I have ever been around and I've ever known. And you have a gift, and that gift is something that needs to be shared with other people. So I want to thank you for being here. I never really had a doubt about this. I knew you'd be here. I want you to know that you're welcome to be in that chair anytime you want to. Whatever show we're doing, whatever the guest is, we would all benefit from that. We're going to talk more about this on our website at radicallyrational.com. And yeah, we hope that you'll visit that. It's got a daily news blog, sports blog, daily videos, etc. But part of being rational is realizing that kindness isn't just kindness, it's logical. It's logical to be kind.
It is. That's really the only way that you should live. I agree with you 100%. And I appreciate the invite, Paul. I really do. It took me about, 1/100th of a second to think, to accept. And it comes at a good time.
Good.
Because I do want to, if it can help somebody, I'm all about a testimony. I love my God, and He wants us to be out there. He doesn't want us to be silent. So if I can help someone, I'd love to. So
there are good things coming. There are good things coming for you and for your family, and there are good things coming to all the people that you come in contact with.
Thank you, Paul.
And we're very, very fortunate.
Now you want to talk Rice football? I'm playing with you.
I thought we were going to talk about uplifting things right now. They just blew a game to North Texas and almost ruined my whole Saturday.
I kid you.
And see, that's why you're a gifted communicator. Anthony Pittman, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
We thank all of you for being with us here on Radically Rational. Again, we do want to invite you to the website, radicallyrational.com. We're about bringing facts, back into fashion, and making simple sanity sexy again. And remember this, kindness is sanity. We'll see you next time on Radically Rational.